What's up, New York? How's it going? I'm Ross Facaturo, bringing you guys the 69th episode of the Apples to Apples podcast. And joining me today, we got a very special guest. You can find him 2 to 6 a.m. on the weekends on WFAN. Your very own, your favorite TO, Al Cintron. Al, thanks for doing this with me, man. How you doing?
What's up, Ross? I know it's been a minute. You asked me for a while to join. Shit happens, life happens, but here I am. And I'm on this Sunday, 2 to 6 a.m. This Sunday.
There you go. There you go. Sunday, 2 to 6 a.m. You can find Al Cintron on the Fan. So tune into his show. It's always a good listen. But listen, I'm a Met fan. You're a Met fan. It's kind of old news at this point. What are we about 2-3 weeks removed from the Marlin game? The wound still stings just as much, man. So tell me, I feel like we got a similar, reaction to it. How could we not? But like, how did you process it, like live, seeing the way that the season ended with the shutout?
Well, it was fitting for the 2025 Mets that you had destiny in your own hands. You lost it. And then the last game of the season, you needed the Brewers to win. And then you had to win. Well, guess what happened? The Brewers won the last game of the season and the Mets got shut out. So that was the perfect way to end 2025 and some of the 2025 season after the 45-24 start, 21 games above 500 with Juan Soto not producing at the time, with the pitching being the number one thing for the team at the time and the hitters not producing runners in scoring position. And we were still 21 games over 500. And then after that, every team pretty much was better than us in the National League, except for, I think it was Pittsburgh. I'm not too sure about that, but I know we sucked at. Yeah, Washington. Yeah. So, and that was it. That sums up the 2025 Mets, a complete and absolute disaster.
And the funny thing is, you talk about a team like Washington. I think Colorado was one other one. Two teams you don't want to be compared to, especially with that payroll, the expectations, all that. Those are definitely two teams you don't want to be compared to. And on the Washington front, what pissed me off the most was the teams like Washington and Miami, as you saw in the last 3 games. Those are the reasons why they didn't get in. Because if you look at the last couple series they won, they had no problem sweeping Philly on their turf. They had no problem taking 2 or 3 against Chicago in the second to last series, who's still playing right now. Philly, whose season just ended yesterday, we could get into in a little bit. Detroit, their season's still going on. They had no problem taking 2 or 3 against them. But when it came down to a team like Pittsburgh, you just mentioned, they got their asses not only swept, they got embarrassed, historically embarrassed, which is, by the way, this is a franchise history, a history of a franchise that you never want to match. Talk about the amazings, the worst team money could buy. When you're breaking those records, that's when shit's hitting the fan. They're doing it in PNC Park. They're doing it down in Miami, and that's the reason why they're still not playing baseball. And to me, that's the most infuriating part, is that they had no problem beating the postseason level teams, the teams that are still playing, ready to play game 5s in the divisional series. But it's the sub 500 teams that are the reason why they didn't, even sneak into a wild card.
Well, the pitching sucked. Sucked. Like I said, the pitching lab has now been demolished, and there's no more pitching lab. It's been rubble, and it's now only a P.O. box. So there's no address for the pitching lab anymore. Manaea failed. Senga quit on the team. David Peterson went back to his old form after he was incredible last season. I think he had the worst ERA in the last 10 starts of the season for starters in Major League Baseball. He was atrocious. Edwin Diaz is the only one on this team that gets a pass. He's the only one on the 2025 Mets that gets a pass. Everybody top to bottom is responsible for what happened with this 2025 disaster of a Mets season.
And the scariest part to me is that Stearns, his claim to fame was the pitching. It's not like you brought in some hitting guru, and I guess you bring in guys like Soto Lindor. It's not so much the pitching element where you got I wouldn't say no names, but like the guys 1 foot out the door in their careers, or coming off career worst seasons, like we saw with Sevy last year. Kind of Manaea, to the point, the fact that he was basically got ousted into a long reliever at the point we signed him, and you saw what he turned into 1 year later. That was kind of the rhetoric with Stearns. And now, only 1 year later, it's completely 180, like you said. Manaea, who a lot of people, myself included, wanted back. I was thrilled he brought him back, and I was kind of a little afraid. It's easy to say in hindsight. Part of me was afraid we were going to see the element of, he's on the long-term deal now. Maybe there's not that incentive with the money on the line. I know you're no fan of Carlos Rodon either. We can get into the Yankees a little bit too. We saw that with his first couple contracts in the league. if there was multiple years attached to a contract, he was dog shit. But when you saw the 1-year deal he had at San Francisco and this final year in Chicago, he was money. And then you saw what he turned it into, signing with the Yankees. First 2 years were beyond shit. This year a little bit better, but obviously it all imploded in the postseason. I was kind of afraid of that with Manaea and a little bit with Sevy too. If we brought him back, he winds up going to Oakland, and we see that exact scenario with the two of them, which is why I really don't understand why people were talking about how we didn't sign Severino, because you see what Manaea turned into. He was better here, and he wound up being no different. He was arguably worse, because not only was he dog shit when he did pitch, but he wound up missing the first couple months of the season. At least Sevy pitched the whole year, and you saw like Peterson. He's probably the worst one, because we're not talking about last year with him. We're talking about only, a couple months ago, we saw the best of this guy back in June, July, pitched in the All-Star game, like you said.
Yep.
And he wound up being, right in the boat with everybody else. So he was probably right up there in terms of concern level for me, just how fast he imploded. And, you were talking about Senga too. The fact that he went down to AAA.
He quit. He quit on the team. He quit.
And AAA, he couldn't get outs, bro. That's when like there's a legitimate issue to be had there. So, between Manaea, Peterson, Senga, how would you rank your concern level out of the three of them?
Senga, number one, because considering the start he had, he was leading the league in ERA. He was pitching like an ace. And I don't want to hear the Pete Alonso defenders say, well, the throw didn't hurt. Saying it wasn't the throw. Don't blame him for that. It was the throw. We've seen it time and time again with Pete Alonso. He cannot throw the ball consistently to the pitcher perfectly, or even close to perfect. Second on that to me is Peterson, just how fast he deteriorated after being an all-star. You went back to being his old self. He lost. You can see him lose his confidence on the mound. The reason I put Manaea at the bottom is because he was dealing with injury all year, all season long, and he tried. And you saw after last season when he lost to the Dodgers, he was super emotional, was about to cry. He cares. So the whole thing about the contract thing, Ross, I don't agree with him in terms of being here. He actually cares. The emotion he showed after losing to the Dodgers. And let me say one thing, getting back to the Diaz thing. I said Diaz is the only one not to blame. On the opening day roster, that's what I'm talking about. The only one not to blame. I think Clay Holmes, if they would have let him pitch like they did against the Marlins, you saw when they let him go, he was fantastic. Clay Holmes was the perfect teammate. He never griped about being taken out of games, although you can see in his face, his reaction, well, that's what they wanted. I figured I can go out long, but it's a team thing. Always, I wish they would have gave him a little more leash. He was the most consistent starting pitcher all season for the Mets. So two guys to me that don't get 100% of the blame are Clay Holmes, because he was the most consistent starter all year, considering it was his first year starting and God knows how long, and Edwin Diaz. The rest are all guilty.
How you feel about Frankie Montas?
I wish I was him, to be honest with you, because next year he's going to get, $17 million to do absolutely nothing and just rehab. That's it.
Kind of just a full circle all of this. I don't want to gripe on the pitcher too much. It's funny to me because you know me. I call your show a lot. I'm the furthest thing from a Met ass kisser. Really, any team I root for, I'm not going to show. Rarely ever. I had to give Sturz a little benefit of the doubt off of what we just said about Manaea and Sevy. I thought Sevy, you couldn't see Severino leave a mound in like the third inning without getting booed at Yankee. Manaea, I just brought up, he was a long reliever at San Fran who fixes everybody. Look at what they did with Gausman. We brought up Carlos Rodon, DeSclafani. I mean, if you're a pitcher on your way out, you thought the Mets will wind up being one of those destinations, but San Francisco is the place to go. They couldn't even fix Manaea. So when both of them come here and have the seasons they had last season, I said, all right, I'm going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt until he no longer deserves it. Now he's the furthest thing from deserving. But Montas, I said, why can't he be this year's Severino? And everybody, it's like the one thing Mets Twitter ever agreed on was that was a dog shit signing, the second pen hit paper. And they were right, man. This guy, he had that first start, I think was against Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure midseason because he missed a shit ton of time with injury too. Solid outing. And then I think it was the San Diego start. One of the multiple 5-1 leads they blew in the bottom half of the inning. That was when he was at a point of no return. And then, like you said, goes down with what we thought could be a phantom injury, winds up being Tommy John, and now his ass is going to be glued to a couch making $17 million for the next year. So he's kind of the embodiment of how the season went. Just kind of like, a somewhat thrown in injury that we never even really knew what it was at the time. I think it got announced as fatigue. He comes back, has nothing, and just kind of fades into the abyss. And that's how the season went down in the standings as well.
Well, fatigue. I mean, I'm fatigued for even watching him. You know, I actually had some faith when Stearns signed him, thinking, okay, same thing he did with Severino. Man, boy, was I wrong. I can admit that I was dead wrong.
Not, but yeah, I mean, I just thought because I look at San Francisco, there's like these lower end teams. I guess San Fran not so much with the low payroll because they still spend. Look at what they just gave to Adames. So, but they kind of have like that. I don't know if it's analytic approach, but they kind of resurrect careers. We see it a lot with Tampa, Milwaukee. I mean, the whole thing with them was like you show the average baseball fan Milwaukee's roster, they probably know like two or three guys, and yet they're in the dance every single year. I think that's kind of what Stearns wanted to do with this team. And the whole thing I heard when he took over the team was you saw what he did with, talk about Milwaukee's payroll
Mhm.
in that small market. Can you only imagine what he's going to do with a big fat wallet? And aside from Soto, and I know that's a big aside given the money he's getting, but aside from that, who has he gone out and paid? Clay Holmes, is that like, I mean, unless I'm forgetting a name, like Harrison Bader, who's the big name he's gotten, since then, with said huge wallet 2 years later.
Well, he brought in Minter, and unfortunately, that was a
Yeah.
huge injury for the team because he was pitching well for the Mets, and Brooks rarely coming back. That was a solid re-sign. He did an awesome job. I hope he's back next season. You look at the rest of the guys, like you said, who has he really signed? Juan Soto was a no-brainer, but I think that was more Steve Cohen. Lindor was here before him. He brought back Pete Alonso on a one-year deal.
Winker,
He didn't.
Winker was a trade, but
Je-
still.
yeah, but they re-signed him as well. Jesse Winker, they brought him back. He did absolutely nothing this season. It was a disaster, and I hate to say it as a Met fan, but we got to keep it a buck. David Stearns failed the trade deadline. I love the moves at the deadline. Ryan Helsley sucked. Rogers had his moments, but anytime they brought him on with guys on base, he stunk. And I can't believe the Mets kept bringing him into games with runners on base when clearly he couldn't handle that. Gregory Soto, when you pitched him in the fourth or fifth inning, he was fine. Anything after that, high leverage, he sucked. And just Cedric Mullins, he sucked. I don't understand why they didn't bring a Jet Williams up to try to bring some light, some energy to this team, the way Nolan McLean brought some life to this team, the way Brandon Sproat brought some life to this team, and even to a point where Jonah Tong brought some life to this team and some energy to this team. I just didn't get it. Cedric Mullins wasn't producing. So why not go to the kid? It couldn't get any worse. They all sucked, all the deadline moves.
And that you brought it up too. I think like objectively the names they went out and got, well, I know it's kind of, now you kind of got to put an asterisk to it. We were just talking about what Peterson wound up being this very season, the complete 180 he took, but the names they brought in, all four of them were having solid seasons. They didn't go
Yes.
out and make that huge splash. But hell, even Mullins, who felt like he had 3 hits the entire time he was here, he wasn't having the All-Star season like he did. I think 2021 he had, but he was He was one of their better bats, and he comes here. He's a complete non-factor. Ryan Helsley, he wasn't having the dominant. I think he led the league in saves a couple years ago. He wasn't having that type of season, but he was
Nope.
able to get outs. Here he comes here. He can't get a guy out. It's incredible. Trevor Rogers, I think, or Tyler Rogers. I think it was we got Tyler right. Some Mariner, I'm pretty sure it
Yep.
was Tyler. Kind of my
I
point
just
out.
say Rogers because, like you, Ross, I make the same mistake saying the wrong. I just say
There's like
Rogers.
10
Screw
of
it.
them, bro. There's like the one in
Yes.
Baltimore is not even related to him.
Yes.
But like he was a mainstay in San Francisco for years. I guess they saw something that showed, the bloom was off the rose to cut ties with him. And we were the suckers that fell for it. And then kind of not to go into the weeds with this, now all of a sudden we have another potential PCA on our hands because the month and a half Drew Gilbert was there. I saw him on my feed every day. The numbers weren't the best, but PCA's numbers weren't the best out of the gates either. And now he's batting cleanup for a team 1 win away from the NLCS. So I guess that's kind of a good segue. We're currently in the middle of the MLB postseason. We have 2 Game 5s, Tigers, Mariners. I'm pretty sure is tonight. Game
Yep.
5 there in the ALDS, and then you got Game 5 of the NLDS, Cubs, Brewers tomorrow. We got one of the other team in this city in our backyard make it this far. Season came to an end at the hands of the Toronto Blue Jays. So, Al, let me get your thoughts on the Yankees elimination.
Um, all season I said that the Blue Jays were the Yankees Canadian daddies. And the fans will call up and say, well, they have to get it done in the playoffs. You even heard the bit that's out there now, where Michael K says, don't be hanging on the rim in the third quarter, do it in the postseason. And now he's getting slam dunked on, with people hanging all over the rim. because the Blue Jays were that team. The Blue Jays are that annoying, scrappy team. They put the ball in play. They struck out the second least amount in Major League Baseball. The Yankees struck out the third most. They put the ball in play. They're annoying. They have a true superstar in Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who somebody tweeted me, and I'll get into this on my show, saying, I thought Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was going to be a Met. Fake news. Well, the Mets never had an opportunity to sign him, because if they did, Pete Alonso would have been out the door faster than Jazzy Jeff getting thrown out of Will Smith's house in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Okay? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is 4 years younger, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is that dude, and he did it in the playoffs. So now the Yankees have a Dominican Canadian daddy, because Vladdy was born in Canada, and it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The Blue Jays did their thing. The Yankees, they're all or nothing approach. How many years in a row are you going to have this approach and fail? How many years in a row are you going to have this approach and fail? And it's funny. The one guy who they traded for who did nothing offensively was the only guy. Then he hit the home run, correct? He hit the home run, lefty, Ryan McMahon. While the rest of the team, and except Aaron Judge, because I'm going to give him a pass, because he did show up this postseason. I always said, for Judge not to get killed, he couldn't be the reason they went home. He wasn't the reason. The reason they went home is because the rest of the team stunk offensively, especially in big spots. And the two aces, Max Fried, who was fried once again in the playoffs, and my favorite Yankee, Carlos Rodon. Because in any big game, Carlos Rodon becomes Carlos Rodon.
You know what, bro? It's funny. And, just to start off, you talk about what Michael Kay said. And I think a lot of people went with that clip. A lot of people were reposting the clip, Toronto's Buck Martinez, talking about how they're not a good team despite the record. They're kicking the ball all over the field. If they're not hitting it over the fence, they're not a winning team. And he was spot on, bro. You see what Jazz was doing. Forget the whole thing with the yawning, because I know he hit the homer right
stupid.
after. That was
the whole
something, yeah.
Everyone yawns, man. The camera just happened to catch a yawn.
I'm yawning every 5 minutes, bro. I know I'm not getting millions, but I'm yawning every 5 minutes. But the errors, he had the double play. A lot of people look at as like kind of the nail in the coffin for the season. You go down the line, right? And even with the pitching, too, you brought up Max Fried. I call him Max Fries in the bag. And a lot of people were talking about how, I saw a stat. If I find the tweet, I'll like flash it up on a clip or something. But the two most, the postseason decliners, I guess is the word. Like, you turn the page on the postseason statistically for hitters, Aaron Judge. And I know this year isn't the case, like you said. A lot of people will point to the game one strikeout, bases loaded. But other than that, the guy was money. So he was the furthest from their problems. And for pitchers, I think Kershaw's one. Number two is Max Fried. And that's going back to Atlanta, the back-to-back years against Philly. He was a non-factor. And you said about Carlos Rodon, too. Like the first couple months of the year, now in year 3 with the Yankees, were kind of the first glimpse of him being anything close to what he was signed to be. And then it just kind of felt like a slow decline from there. And then what he was in the postseason, what he was the first 2 years here in the Bronx. You got to give a little credit to Cam Schlittler. You got to be
a lot of credit.
Careful with it here. But live radio, TV, you see everybody trying to not slip up on the name. Guy was absolute money. First, the Boston start, he was unbelievable. And even this start against Toronto did his job, ate up some innings. But like you said, it was like the fundamental stuff. The errors, the lineup couldn't hit aside from one guy. What do you think? What do you see going down with the whole Bellinger Grisham situation? You think that's an easier problem to have now with the playoffs in hindsight?
Trent Grisham's gone. He had a great regular season, sucked ass in the playoffs. He's got to go. And it's kind of funny that Jason Dominguez had a pinch hit at bat and he hits a double. Yankee fans were calling for, hey, just make the switch. You can't do it. You can't do it. Make the switch. It couldn't get any worse. Trent Grisham, yes, a great fielder, but in the playoffs, he stunk. And Cody Bellinger, it all depends if he was happy being here. I'm sure it was an awkward dynamic with Stan used to, smash his wife out. They used to be a couple. I'm sure that was a weird dynamic for him. He's the perfect Yankee, though, with that swing. He can play multiple positions. He's great defensively. His swing looked a little long, and he was uppercutting in the playoffs. You could tell he was pressing. But Cody Bellinger, I'm not sure if he's going to be back. Although there's a couple of things. I respect what he said after the game. Just like I respect Alex Bregman, what he said after the game. Just like I respect Edwin Diaz, what they said after the game. All have in common, they're all free agents. The one free agent on the Mets, and I hate to bring it back to the Mets, that, didn't waste any time saying he's opting out, is Pete Alonso, and that pissed me off. But we'll get into that another time. Cody Bellinger should be a Yankee, but it all depends if he was happy being a Yankee, with everything going on. I had to be awkward for him, man. Coming to work, high-fiving a guy that, knows what your significant other looks like, butt naked. That had to be tough.
If you know, you know. This whole story on Twitter, everything.
Yep.
Let me get your thoughts on the Phillies elimination. I
Oh,
mean, let me
oh,
say this really quick, bro. If
oh,
if our season ended the way that season ended last night, bro, you would hear about it so much more. You would
oh, yeah.
hear about it so much more. If you didn't see the clip, Orion Kirkland on the mound had an easy play at first on the comebacker, kind of bobbled it,
Mhm.
still had all the time in the world,
Yep.
throws it to home, like a mile over JT Realmuto, and that's how the Philadelphia Phillies season ends. So, Al, let me get your thoughts on that real quick.
All right, let me say this. Real Muto was pointing to first base, right? Why wasn't he screaming, throw to first, throw to first? Instead, he's pointing, like, hey, do you have directions with 10th Street at? That way, and without screaming at him. And then he throws it home. Unfortunately for the Phillies, they lose. Well, not unfortunately. I love the fact that they lost. It's beautiful. The Phillies have all these guys. Bryce Harper, how many RBIs and homers he had in that series? Zero. A big Dunkin' Donuts with no sprinkles on it. Philadelphia fans, they deserve it. They deserve to lose like that. And it was a double whammy for Philly. Shout out to the New York Giants last night, kicking the Philadelphia Eagles' asses last night. It was a double whammy for the Philly fans. It couldn't have happened to a better organization, a better fan base. I know Harry Rose put out, if you don't feel bad for him, you have something about your soul being whatever. Well, I guess my soul is all fucked up because I do not feel bad one bit. It's the Phillies. If it was another uniform, maybe. It's the Phillies. So fuck them.
Bro, and it's crazy now too. Like they dropped the list of free agents, pending free agents for them. It's not like a couple fringe relievers here and there. It's their, MVP caliber DH that leads off night in night out. It's the catcher that's been there for years. Ranger Suarez is a hell of a starter. I mean, this may. I don't want to get too. I don't want to get too cute and jinx it all of a sudden. We see him having a parade next year, so I'm going to keep quiet for a little bit.
No,
But
not me. Not me.
that's where me and you differentiate, bro. I don't touch the money sometimes, big picture, but Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, like these are significant parts of the core that could be heading out. You're still gonna have the Harpers, Turners of the world, but at what point, bro? Like year in, year out, like they matched the way their season ended last year at the hands of us, of course. Mark Vientos all out 1 year later. What a difference it makes. The NLCS, the way they choked that against Arizona, feels
Yep.
like ever since 22, that was obviously the furthest they've gone, but not only the ways they've lost, where they lost, but how they've lost them. I think like when they had that 3-2 lead against Arizona and choked it, both games being
At
at
home.
Citizens Bank Park, yeah, and they have looked lifeless since. They kind of feel like a write-in. They shouldn't be, but they've been a write-in to win the division the last 2 years, and they've done nothing with it. We're looking at Atlanta had a season. Forget Miami was kind of a surprise, but the first couple months of the year, you're talking about us and them being like this 1A, 1B for the division. They get in, no problem. We have the collapse. You can't even really call it a collapse, just the way the season deteriorated. And they wound up winning one more postseason game than us. That's kind of fucked up. It's kind of how fucked up the postseason format is that this great season you have, you host 2 playoff games, you look lifeless in both, and you don't bring it back to your home ballpark. That's how the format goes, and that's how their season's gone now 2 years in a row. And it's incredible, bro. You're looking at who knows if Thompson's there next year. Like I said, Harper, Turner, you'll still have them, but the rest of the core, who knows what it's going to look like. So I don't know, man. Do you think this is the end of their run?
Yeah, I think Thompson's gone after the season. Castellanos, I think, isn't he a free agent after the year as well? If he's not, they'll get rid of him because of the comments he made about the fans. I think Kyle Schwarber is going to bounce as well. That Trey Turner contract is a horrible contract. I know he won the batting title, but the batting title is what he bat 290 something to win the batting title. That's
Jeff
crap.
McNeil won it 3 years ago.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all you
yeah.
need to
So
know.
and then Trey Turner was getting booed at home. Bryce Harper is getting booed at home. Their pitching staff, they have Sanchez, but again, Suarez is a free agent. I think he's going to bounce as well. Somebody's going to overpay for him. No doubt about that.
And
Um,
last year's, not to cut you off, man, Wheeler's he's done after next year. Barring what he said, and that was even before the blood clot or
that's if
whatever
he
it was.
that, that's even if
Yeah,
he comes back. That's even
yeah.
if he can come back from this. So the Philly has a lot of questions. That's why. But going into the season, I was never concerned about the Braves. I even said it on the air. It was Phillies and Mets. That's it. And next year, I think the NL East is going to be wide open. And yes, I'm going to throw the Marlins in there because they have a lot of good young pitching and a lot of young scrappy players. And you saw what they did after April. They're one of the best teams in baseball record wise. They were there. They played above 500 baseball. They're going to be a pain in the ass. The Nationals, they got a new regime coming in. They'll probably be a pain in the ass. The Braves, do I expect the Braves to be bad again? No, but it'd be interesting to see what they do, with ALDS and Acuna Jr. Do they try to hit the reset and trade Acuna Jr. and try to hit the reset and get a large package back for him? We'll see what happens with that. The Mets, they're going to spend. You have a lot of young prospects as well. Let's see what their team looks like. And the Phillies, nobody knows what's going to happen now in their organization. You can't keep losing the way they're losing the Phillies and think that it's going to work. It hasn't worked. It's gone backwards, in fact. So we'll see what happens with the NL East. It should be fun.
No, for sure, man. And like you said, Miami, I mean, look, they never really made a serious run, but the fact that it was like 5 games ago, they still had a mathematical chance. I mean,
They
got
went into the last weekend. They went into the final series.
They could be a problem next year for sure. And even Washington, I thought they'd be a lot better this year. James Wood, I know first couple months of the year, he was a dog.
Mm-hmm.
They got CJ Abrams. I mean, really just that team alone from the Juan Soto trade basically constructed their team now. So it'll be fun next year, man, for sure. Let me get your World Series take real quick. Who do you got coming out of both leagues?
Well, before everything started, I picked the Mariners to win the World Series, but I'm rooting for Toronto. I want Vladdy to get his ring. He's been solid. I'm a huge Vladdy guy. It'd be nice to see him make the Yankee series stick for him as well, so he can continue this King of New York stuff. I love it. I love to see it. It's trolling the Yankee fans. In the National League, I don't know. It's looking like to me a Blue Jays Dodgers World Series. And remember, the Blue Jays tried to get Ohtani. They wanted to get Ohtani, wanted to get Yamamoto. They were going after Soto. They had the money to spend. The Blue Jays are a lockdown closer away from being, and fixing the bullpen up as well. But the Blue Jays can be a dangerous team for years to come. If they're going to spend. I even text Evan during the game. The Blue Jays should throw the bank at Edwin Diaz, and they should throw the bank at him. And Devin Williams is going to be a free agent as well. He can be a closer for Toronto, sticking to the Yankees. But I'm seeing the Blue Jays Dodgers World Series. Although it'd be nice for the Mariners, a team that's been snake bitten for God knows how long, an organization that's been snake bitten for how long, and winning the big one and getting to the big one. Be nice to see them get one too. But I'm thinking Dodgers Blue Jays.
That's crazy, bro. Just really quick, like you look at Toronto. Last year, they were in dead last in that AL East. It kind of feels like them and Baltimore almost flip-flopped. And Baltimore was a team, a couple years prior that had this up-and-coming young core. Gunner's still doing his thing. But like Adley's in and out of the league. They just paid Basallo, so who knows if
they're going to trade him.
Future's there. That's what it feels like, yeah. And all of a sudden, Toronto now, they trade away Teoscar Hernandez. They trade away Lourdes Gurriel, and somehow they get better. And it really got nothing for the two of them. I think the guy they got for Teoscar, they DFA'd. Lourdes, they got back Dalton Varsho, but it cost them Gabe Moreno too. And look what they've been able to do to him, man. You're spot on about the closer. I mean, it was Jordan Romano last year, Jeff Hoffman this year. They basically signed and traded the two of them, both of which I don't even know how they're in the MLB. So it's a miracle they're winning with him closing games. But you brought up a solid point. If they, Diaz feels like a match made in heaven for him, bro, which ain't a good thing for us. But you add Diaz to that roster, all of a sudden you got a top dog in the AL for what feels like, the better part of half a decade. But
they were my sleeper team before the season. We went over which team sleeper team. I said I'll take the Blue Jays as my sleeper team.
Look at them now,
and
bro.
Here they are.
Last year we were talking about Vladdy and Bo being like, and I know Bo hasn't signed yet, but Vladdy's signed for the next decade and a half. We were talking about the two of them being sleeper deadline ads. One's there for the next decade and a half. The other one, it makes all the sense in the world to bring him back too, because I'm pretty sure he won the AL band title, right? Or
I think so as well. And remember, locking on Vladdy Jr. for that long, he's not going to let them go backwards. He's going to put the pressure on them to keep going and get players and get better, especially if they get knocked out. But because they're right there,
No, for sure, they got the pieces to put it all together. This is like you said too. Sometimes for a core, you got to have that season. Now, there's at the same time too. There's that element of you never know when you're going to get back, because in a way we thought we had that too. So it's all about how you add to it. Because if you fuck it up the wrong way, bro, you're right back to square one. But if you're in Toronto right now, man, you got to have all the faith in the world. You saw it, like you said, against the Yankees. You saw a more fundamentally sound team. They may not be the better team on paper, bro, but they sure as hell played like it. That's the reason why they're on to the ALCS. Yankees and Mets both sharing a couch in Cancun, man. But
And they're waiting for Philly to arrive, along with Boston sitting on that beach as well. So
yeah, Philly should land in a little bit, bro.
all big market teams sitting home.
It's incredible, man. Sunday morning, 2 to 6 a.m. You could catch our guy Al Cintron.
Wake your asses up.
Wake your asses up. That's what it is. Sunday morning, 2 to 6 a.m. on WFAN. Al, thanks for doing this with me, bro. You're the man, all right?
My pleasure, Ross. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem, man. And thank you, everybody, for watching, listening. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Apples to Apples podcast. See you guys.